Hello，你好，欢迎回来。Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on November 25th, 2020. It is one day before the American Thanksgiving, so to our American viewers, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully, everyone have a good one. I know it is hard with the pandemic and all that stuff, but if you still have family to spend it with, hey, treasure that moment, treasure each other. It sucks to not be able to have big parties, but if you still have people at home that you are spending time with on this Thanksgiving, then you are still a lot more fortunate than many other people in this world, including myself, actually. I'm not trying to be pitiful or feel depressed or anything, but hey, at Thanksgiving, I don't usually have anyone right here to spend it with. I have to get out of the house and be at the mercy of friends and other people. But hey, no, that's just the way things are. Back to the topic of the day. Last week we talked about the long and winding road for inanimate objects and animals in Chinese tradition, Chinese religion, to become immortal, to reach godhood, or at the very least, becoming a demigod or a demon. I mentioned that of all these inanimate objects and animals, there's five animals that are the most commonly referred to that said to become demons or demigods the most often. Their legends even persist today, especially if you go to northern China, where a lot of people are still farmers and ranchers and hunters. They still worship these deities in their household. In a big sense, these five deities uh, make up what amount to paganism in Chinese culture, even though they are often linked in with Buddhism and Taoism, but they are almost a religion all unto themselves, the five animal deities. My original plan was to go through all five today, but then I decided that it's going to make the video too long and I won't be able to do them justice, give you a more detailed account of each one of these. So I thought we'll just take them one at a time, and this way it's more in depth and won't make a 2 hour video. So we start with the top of the list, the first foremost animal that is said by Chinese people to always be able to achieve godhood or at least becoming demonic or gain the demigod status is the fox. Now let me clarify this. We are not counting the original holy beast like dragon and phoenix and kirin and the black turtle. Those were like born into that position. They didn't have to do anything to become immortal. They were born immortal. But for animals that have to work to achieve that, fox is the most common. Why a fox? Well, the easiest explanation is that foxes are said to be some of the most intelligent animals. At least that's what people used to believe back in the good old days. So it made sense that something so intelligent that even smarter than dogs would have an easier time becoming sentient and gain immortality and take on human traits. Like we said last week, the one big door step, one big threshold these uh, newborn deities have to cross is they have to be able to take on human shape and talk like human, walk like human, before they decide to, or before it's decided for them, they were going to be demons or demigods. So for a fox, it's a lot easier than something stupid like a housefly. Um, and a fox would have a higher chance of survival as well. In Mandarin, the fox is 狐狸, Huli, 狐狸, fox, foxes. What is really interesting about Huli is that they used to be good in Chinese people's mind. In the early day, about 7,000 years ago, when Chinese people were still mostly tribal, people worshipped Huli as a good deity, as a force for good. And then, somewhere after the Song Dynasty, so about 5,000 years ago, somewhere after that, suddenly Huli became a symbol of bad and evil and degradation and all kind of bad stuff. And that persisted into today's Chinese culture. Today, if you want to describe a woman who is very loose and free with her affection, a woman who have a lot of friends. I'm trying to keep this PG, so if you don't understand what I'm talking about, ask your mommy or daddy. So if you're trying to describe a woman who's very free with her affection, you would call her a 狐狸精. 狐狸 means fox. 精 means demon, demonic. So you would literally call these women demonic foxes for their lifestyle. And when you want to describe someone who smells really, really bad, like someone who is outdoors and doesn't take a bath that often and have that really rank smell, you say they smell like a fox. When you want to describe someone who's very sneaky and tricky, you say they are sneaky and tricky like a fox. They're an old fox. This guy's an old fox. 老狐狸, old fox. That describes someone who's not trustworthy. So foxes that gotten to the point where they are linked with all kind of negativity in Chinese culture. And there's a reason for that, or at least legend has a reason for that. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit. But first, I want to tell you about how a fox evolved into immortality. You see, as I talked about last week, as these objects and animals gain more and more power to become immortal, they develop different traits. For a fox, they grow extra tails. It is said that if a fox lives to be 100 years, then the fox becomes sentient. The fox becomes aware of, hey, now I'm old enough. I can start try to become a deity. I can start to try to be a immortal. So at this point, the fox have to eat the right thing, do the right thing, and live a healthy life, sleep, drink enough water, all that good stuff, and rack up enough karma or enough power, and if it reach 500 years old, it will grow a second tail, and once it reach 1,000 years old, it grow a third tail. A fox have to go on and on like that until it has at least 6 tails. So that's like 3,000 years. A fox have to live for 3,000 years, survive for 3,000. Don't forget, during this 3,000 years, a fox is uh, more powerful than a normal fox. It has some magical abilities, but it can still get killed. You know, if it get caught by a hunter, it can still get killed. Get caught by a dog, it still get killed. So it's hard for a fox to get up to 3,000 years to get 6 tails. Once a fox gets to 6 tails, this fox can now take on human traits. Walk like a human, talk like a human. And this is when the fox comes to that crossroad. Depending on how it gets to this point, if it did a lot of good things, helped a lot of people, then it becomes a demigod. If it hurt a lot of people, if it ate people human flesh, if it drank human blood to get to this point, it becomes a demon. And then after it becomes a demigod or a demon, after it gets to the next level, it has to go on for 3,000 more years, because now it's every 1,000 years it will get a new tail. No longer 500 years, but every 1,000 years. So after tail number 6, things slow down, and the fox can go all the way up to 9 tails. Once the fox gets to 9 tails, it becomes either a god or goddess or an archdemon. It is said a 9-tailed fox is so powerful and hard to deal with that even dragons and phoenixes don't want to mess with them. Dragons are more powerful, of course, physically, but the foxes, especially when you think about it, like a fox that lived for 6,000 years, survived for 6,000 years, while a dragon was born into that position. A fox that have to survive and fight and struggle for 6,000 years to get 9 tails, that fox has way more experience surviving. That fox has got way more dirty tricks up their sleeve, um, and it probably accumulated more magical properties. So while a dragon is physically stronger, dragons don't want to mess with 9-tailed foxes unless they have no choice, because 9-tailed foxes are very, very, very hard to defeat. They're sneaky, they're tricky, they're full of dirty tricks, and they're very smart. So that is the evolution of a fox in reaching godhood. They have to get to 9 tails, 6,000 years. That's really, really hard work. Now, why did Chinese people worship fox as a good deity in the beginning? It is because Chinese people believe that foxes embody 3 virtues that were the highest value in Chinese society back then. The first virtue a fox embodies is the virtue of dedication. Chinese people believed that because all foxes basically look the same, they are the same brownish, red, brownish, whatever, brown color, no spot, no rosette, no stripe, no dots, no nonsense. If you see a fox in northern China or you see a fox in southern China, they look the same. It's all the same color. Chinese people believe that that means the fox was dedicated, a very determined, dedicated animal. So it embodied dedication. It didn't mess around. It wanted this color and it stayed with this color and this color only. That was a big thing for Chinese people, dedication. So the fox embodies the virtue of dedication. Second, the fox embodies the virtue of improvement. Because if you look at the fox from the head on, the fox's head is very small, like nice and pointy, like my hand here, this shape my hand is in. And then as you go up the head, it gets bigger and bigger, the body's bigger, and then this big, giant, bushy tail. So the fox is a very streamlined animal, small in the front, big in the back. Chinese people believe that that means the fox is a very uh, uh, self-improving animal. It means that it will get bigger the further back you go. And back then, Chinese people believed that as we live and die and breathe and eat, every minute of our life has to be about improving ourselves, self-betterment, achievement, accomplishment, production, how productive you are to your society. So they really value that. So a fox to them embodies the value of improvement, betterment, progress. Third, last but not least, fox also embodies the value of family loyalty. And most of you know that if you know Chinese culture at all, you know that's like one of the biggest things to Chinese people, family loyalty. How come fox embodied family loyalty? Now, I'm not a scientist or biologist, and I have not Googled this to see if it's true, but it is said by Chinese people that a fox will always die facing its nest or its home. It is said even if you take a fox 200 miles away from its nest and you kill that fox, before that fox dies, it will turn around and face the direction of its nest, even from hundreds of miles away. Chinese people thought that was an amazing trait. I mean, heck, if that is true, I think that's an amazing trait too. The Chinese people thought that meant the fox was always looking for, thinking about its home, its family. So family loyalty, big thing with Chinese people. So the fox embodies family loyalty, improvement, and dedication. That made it an awesome animal for Chinese people to worship back in the good old days. But after the Song Dynasty, so about 5,000 years ago, suddenly the fox fell from grace, and gradually we hear more and more bad things about foxes, bad reputation, rumors and gossips, how evil foxes were. Why is that? Well, there were a lot of political and scholarly answers and studies on that. But I want to tell you about the more fun story, the one from Chinese mythology of why did the fox fall from grace. It was said that it was the fault of Queen Daji. Queen Daji was the last queen of the Song Dynasty. She was said to be one of the four most beautiful women in the entire Chinese history. Now, just consider this for a second, how many Chinese people there are in the world, and that a lot of these, now this number has likely be around this size for thousands of years. That's a lot of Chinese people. So to be able to claim to be one of the four most beautiful Chinese women in the entire Chinese history, Queen Daji must have been something like crazy beautiful. I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, millions or billions and billions of Chinese people down thousands of years, and she's one of the four most beautiful women. That's really something. But Queen Daji wasn't known primarily for her beauty. She was famous in Chinese history, and this is real history right now, okay? This part is not legend, this part is real history. She was known throughout Chinese history as one of the most cruel person in Chinese history. She was known for her cruelty. Queen Daji has uh, somehow convinced the emperor, her husband, to play along with her when she had new inventions, new ideas, and she has invented some of the worst tortures, some of the worst executions in Chinese history. This is going to get a little bit dark, but I want to give you guys an idea of how cruel Queen Daji was. One of her inventions was the execution device called Pao Lao. Pao Lao, Pao Lao. It's old Chinese, but it loosely translates as big iron grill. Big iron grill. I think you're already starting to get an inkling of what this thing is. A Pao Lao was a giant iron pillar, hollow on the inside, with big retractable metal chains attached to the outside. When someone displeased Queen Daji, she would have the inside of the pillar filled up with kindlings and flammable stuff, and then she would have someone light the inside of the pillar on fire, and then she would wait for a couple of hours for that big iron pillar to get super, super, super hot. And then she would have the prisoner chained to the pillar and have the chains retracted until the prisoner's body slapped against the side of this super heated pillar. It's like a human barbecue, basically. Those of you who like Japanese, Korean grills, you kind of can get an image in your head how this would work. Okay, big iron pillar, and they take the prisoner, strip him or her naked, and then tie them to this superheated pillar. It was said that when that happened, you wouldn't see anything. You just a puff of smoke and a lot of steam, and it smelled really, really bad. And then when the steam cleared, all you saw were a smudge on the side of the pillar in the shape of a human. Not even bones would be left. That's how hot that pillar was. The Pao Lao was such a gruesome execution device that it was never used again after the Song Dynasty. Now, Chinese people had a long history of tortures and executions and interrogation devices that were really cruel. Queen Daji somehow invented this thing that was so disgustingly cruel that none of the emperors or rulers after Song Dynasty ever used it again. That's how bad it was. And that was not her only toy. She invented a lot of these, what she called her toys, to entertain herself with. Now, we go into the legend part of the story. It was said that why Queen Daji was so cruel, so messed up, because Queen Daji was not a human. It was said that when the emperor, before he met Queen Daji, he was a very good person. He was a strong and wise emperor. But one day, when the emperor paid a call of respect, we can say when the emperor went to a temple to pay respect to one of the ancient goddesses of the time, the goddess Nuwa. We briefly mentioned Nuwa in the past. She's one of the three deities that was there in the creation of the world. So Nuwa is like more powerful than the Jade Emperor or Buddha or all that. Like Nuwa is like the Jade Emperor's great grandmother. I mean, she wasn't, but I'm trying to give you a scope of how powerful this ancient goddess was. So the emperor went to the temple of Nuwa to pay his respect. But when he saw the statue of Nuwa, he decided to write a poem on the wall of the temple, paying compliments to the statue, to the how beautiful the goddess was. Unfortunately, the poem was very disrespectful. Now, this poem, actually, the writing of the poem did happen in real history. I read the poem in a history book. The last line of the poem basically says, "Too bad that you are here in your temple. If you were a real person, I would take you back to my palace and keep you in my bedroom." That's basically how the last line of the poem went. So as you can see, that's really, really disrespectful to say that to a goddess, especially like one of the goddesses of creation. After he wrote the poem, the emperor went home and forgot all about it. But when the goddess Nua found out about the poem, she was furious, like fully, she was mad. I mean, here's one of the greatest deity of all time. She's like the mother of the entire universe. And here's this mortal emperor that trying to flirt with her. Yeah, she was really angry. So Nua summoned three demons to her side, told them, I want you guys to do everything you can to make sure that the Song Dynasty come to an end. I want you to dethrone this emperor. I want you to end his dynasty. One of these three demons was a nine-tailed fox. Bad news. Like I said, nine-tailed foxes, you don't want to mess with them. Even dragons don't want to mess with them. This nine-tailed fox went to the palace, turned herself into a human woman named Doji, and enchanted the emperor and became his queen. And from there on, she did all the things, as messed up things as she could imagine, to try to force his loyal subject to turn against him. She was so cruel, so messed up, that she incited one of the biggest civil war of the time that eventually saw the Song Dynasty to its end. Millions and millions of people died because of Queen Daji, and it's because the goddess Nua commanded the nine-tailed fox to go into the palace to make sure that the emperor get dethroned. Now here is the kind of messed up part of the legend. After the dust settled, after the new dynasty settled in, the gods, uh, the Jade Emperor and the gods that were in heaven found out what this nine-tailed fox did, and they wanted to execute her because she caused the death of so many people. She told them, she said, I was acting under order. I was. She basically gave them that old line we hear from policemen, military people all the time, even today. I was doing my job. I was acting under order. That now all the messed up things I did it because the goddess Nua told me to. And just like any good politician, goddess Nua appeared at the trial of the nine-tailed fox, and goddess Nua said, I did not tell you to be that cruel. I told you to dethrone the emperor. I told you to make sure the dynasty ends. I didn't tell you to kill all those people. I didn't tell you to invent all those execution and torture devices. You did that on your own. I did not condone that behavior. So go ahead and execute this fox. Oh, whoops, there goes the camera. Hold on. Let me reposition the camera. I knocked it over by accident. Got too excited with the story. What can I say? Anyway, so Goddess Nuwa said it wasn't my order that she was so messed up. You know, she went way beyond what I expected her to do. So go ahead and execute the little, you know what? In the end, because of how sneaky and smart the nine-tailed fox was, she actually managed to escape the wrath of the gods. She turned herself into a different human woman and hopped a ship bound for a remote island, and she set up a new home on this island. And this island and its neighboring island eventually became Japan. This is as far as the legend goes, this is why that even today there's such a big presence of fox deities in Japanese legends and Japanese pop culture. Primarily, just off the top of my head, I can think of in Japanese culture, pop culture, there's this super cool animated cartoon called Yu Yu Hakusho. I really enjoyed that as a teenager. And one of the characters in Yu Yu Hakusho, in the end, revealed himself to be this ancient nine-tailed fox demon. Uh, so, yeah, Japanese people today still worship and write a lot of stories about foxes and fox deities. A lot of legends said it's because that the original nine-tailed fox that was persecuted by the god left China and set up shop on the islands that eventually became Japan. If you play the game Fortnite, there is a outfit in Fortnite called Drift, and Drift also take on a fox trait, and when it get high enough level, that is also another nod at the fox deity and fox worship in Japanese culture. But because Queen Doji was so cruel, so horrendously cruel, that and the legend said that she was a nine-tailed fox. So ever since the Song Dynasty, ever since the end of the Song Dynasty, Chinese people had this new idea about foxes. They were no longer noble animals with embodying the family values and improvement and dedication. They became tricksters and sneaky and cruel and backstabbing creatures. Now, no matter how the legend goes, and no matter how we decide to take these old stories, it is important to note that foxes are pretty wonderful animals. A lot of them are endangered, but they are very pretty, very intelligent, and just all around quite wonderful. Unless you happen to be a chicken farmer, then you might find them a little bit annoying. But uh, regardless, these old stories of foxes, demons, goddesses are very tantalizing and interesting even today. At least for me, uh, personally, I find them very interesting. There are thousands, tens of thousands of fox-related tales and songs and poems and stories throughout Chinese history. Hopefully, eventually, one day, we will come back and visit some of them. Next, Wisdom Wednesday, we'll look at the next animal deity down our list. Come back tomorrow for Toy Thursday. For now, have a good night and 再见。